Welcome to the deep dive. We're diving into a chapter today about cognitive development in emerging adulthood.
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah, you requested a really thorough breakdown of how our thinking evolves after those teenage years. And we're going to be exploring some theories and research, even some real-world examples.
To help you really grasp all the material.
Exactly. So to kick things off, why don't we talk about Piaget,
Oh, yeah.
a
Piaget.
big name in developmental psychology. He came up with these stages of cognitive development, with the last stage being formal operational thought.
Right.
But
Yeah.
some researchers are saying that there's a fifth stage, actually,
Interesting.
post-formal thought.
Yeah, Piaget's theory was really groundbreaking. But newer research suggests that our cognitive development doesn't just stop in adolescence.
Right, like we don't just reach a peak.
Exactly. And this post-formal thought, it acknowledges that adult thinking goes beyond just abstract reasoning. And it kind of involves, being more practical, flexible, and being able to like integrate emotions into how we make decisions.
Definitely, and I can definitely relate to that. Like as a teenager, it felt like everything was black and white. But as I've gotten older, I've realized that there are so many shades of gray. You know what I mean? I
Absolutely.
think that's what post-formal thought is all about,
Yeah.
embracing complexity.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. And the chapter even uses a great anecdote to illustrate this point.
Go ahead.
It talks about a boy who gets into a fight because another kid supports a different candidate for like a political office.
Oh, wow.
And his reasoning is very childlike. It's very focused on like a single perspective.
Yeah.
Um, an adult with post-formal thinking would approach this situation very differently.
They'd probably like take a step back and consider different viewpoints, right? Instead of just reacting emotionally, they would weigh the pros and cons, think about the potential consequences, and come up with a more like thought out response.
Exactly. And that brings us to another key concept,
I-
stereotype threat.
Okay, so stereotype threat.
This is the idea that when we are aware of negative stereotypes about our group,
Oh, yeah.
it can actually impact our performance.
Wow.
It's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy where the fear of confirming the stereotype makes us more likely to do so.
It's like when you're taking a test and you think, oh, if I don't do well, it'll just prove that everyone's right about people like me, and it's so distracting.
Yeah.
It can really undermine your confidence.
Absolutely. And the chapter highlights a study
Okay.
on reducing transphobia.
Yeah.
And they found that encouraging open conversations and reflection helped shift people's perspectives.
That's pretty cool.
It's a reminder that even deeply ingrained biases can be challenged through dialogue and empathy.
I love that, and it makes me think about my own experience teaching in a prison. I went in with certain assumptions about the incarcerated population, But getting to know those individuals personally completely shattered those stereotypes.
Yeah.
It was a really powerful lesson in the importance of challenging your own biases.
Yeah, those kinds of personal experiences can be transformative.
Yeah.
They force us to confront our preconceived notions and embrace the complexity of human experience.
They do?
And speaking of embracing complexity, that's a perfect segue to dialectical thinking, another key aspect of post-formal thought.
Dialectical thinking. Is that about being able to see both sides of an argument?
It's more than just seeing both sides. It's
Oh.
about holding two seemingly opposite ideas in your mind at the same time,
Okay.
and then finding a way to kind of synthesize them into a new, more comprehensive understanding.
Okay, that sounds pretty abstract. Can you give me an example of how that works in real life?
Sure.
Okay.
Think about romantic relationships.
Yeah.
A non-dialectical thinker might view a breakup as a complete failure,
Right.
but a dialectical thinker would see it as both an ending and a beginning.
Oh.
They would be able to acknowledge the pain of the breakup while also recognizing the potential for growth and new opportunities.
So instead of getting stuck in this rigid mindset, they're able to find this more nuanced perspective that allows them to move forward in a healthier way.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
It's a powerful way of thinking that can be applied to all sorts of situations,
Yeah.
from personal dilemmas to global issues.
Really?
Even something as simple as changing drinking habits can demonstrate dialectical thinking.
Oh, you mean like you could start with the thesis of party all the time,
Yeah.
then swing to the complete opposite, like I need to be totally sober, and eventually arrive at I can enjoy myself responsibly.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. I get it.
It's about finding that balance, that nuanced perspective
Yeah.
that takes into account multiple viewpoints and leads to a more holistic understanding.
Makes sense. And I bet this kind of thinking is super helpful when it comes to making those tough adult decisions like choosing a career path or figuring out your values.
Absolutely. As we mature, we face, more complex moral and ethical dilemmas, and dialectical thinking gives us this framework for navigating those challenges in a thoughtful and responsible way.
So dialectical thinking helps us become more flexible and adaptable in our thinking.
Yeah.
I'm curious, does this new stage of cognitive development also influence how we view things like morality and faith?
That's a great question, and the chapter delves into that as well. As adults, we start grappling with moral decisions more frequently than we did as adolescents.
Yeah.
It's not just like hypothetical dilemmas in a classroom anymore. It's real life choices with real consequences.
Yeah, it makes you realize that adulting isn't just about paying bills and doing laundry.
Right.
It's also about developing a stronger sense of ethics and figuring out what you believe in.
Exactly. The chapter actually mentions this James Rest's defining issues test,
Okay.
or DIT.
The DIT.
It's designed to assess how people reason about moral dilemmas.
So does the DIT show how our moral compass evolves as we get older?
It does research using the DIT suggests that as adults mature, their moral reasoning tends to shift. They become less focused on personal gain and more concerned with things like fairness, justice, and the well-being of others.
That makes sense.
Of course, this isn't a universal pattern, and many factors influence individual development, but it's a general trend.
Right. It's like as our world expands beyond our immediate circle, we start to kind of grasp the bigger picture
Right.
and the impact our choices have on others.
Yeah, and then there's the question of faith.
Okay, faith.
It's interesting because studies show that while religious service attendance tends to decrease in adulthood,
Okay.
many individuals report feeling more spiritually grounded and morally centered.
Oh, that seems kind of contradictory.
Yeah.
If people are going to religious services less often, why are they feeling more morally grounded?
It's a fascinating paradox. One way to understand this is through James Fowler's stages of faith development.
Okay.
He suggests that as we mature, our understanding of faith evolves from a simple literal interpretation to a more complex, abstract, and potentially even universalizing view.
So it's less about following rules and rituals and more about finding meaning and purpose.
Precisely. It becomes less about blind faith and more about a personal search for truth and connection.
I like that.
And, Jonathan Haidt's research on moral foundations adds another layer to this.
Oh, tell me about that. They've heard his name but haven't really dug into his work.
He argues that our moral judgments are shaped by a combination of innate predispositions
Okay.
and cultural influences.
Okay.
He identifies 6 moral foundations:
6.
care, fairness, liberty, loyalty, authority, and sanctity.
Wow. Okay. So depending on our background and upbringing, we might prioritize certain foundations over others.
Exactly. This helps explain why people from different cultures or religions can have such drastically different moral views.
Right.
Understanding these foundations can help us approach those differences with more empathy and open-mindedness.
Yeah, that's really helpful for navigating today's world, where we're constantly encountering diverse perspectives. It reminds us that there's not always one right answer when it comes to morality.
Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about higher education and its impact on cognitive development.
Oh, yeah.
This was a section you specifically wanted to explore in detail.
Yeah.
And for good reason, there's so much to unpack here.
Definitely college is often seen as this transformative experience,
Yeah, right.
But I'm really curious about the research behind those claims. Does it actually live up to the hype?
Well, first, let's acknowledge the well-established benefits of college when it comes to things like earning potential health and even longevity.
Yeah.
College graduates, on average, tend to earn more, have better access to health care, and live longer lives.
Right. Those are pretty compelling reasons to pursue higher education.
Yeah.
But what about the impact on our cognitive abilities?
Oh,
Does college actually make us smarter?
there's a lot of research on this, and it's nuanced.
Okay.
Earlier studies, like those by William Perry back in the 70s and 80s, showed a clear progression in students' cognitive abilities during their college years. They developed more critical thinking skills, became more flexible in their reasoning, and learned to see things from multiple perspectives.
So it sounds like college was pretty effective at fostering those higher level thinking skills we've been talking about.
Yes, but
Haven't there been some more recent studies that suggest those benefits might not be as strong as they used to be?
you're right. More recent research has raised concerns about a potential decline in critical thinking skills
Really?
among college students.
Wow.
Some researchers attribute this to a number of factors like decreased academic rigor, increased student anxiety, and societal pressures to focus on career preparation over intellectual exploration.
Yeah, it's almost like there's this tension between The idea of college as a place for personal and intellectual growth versus college as a means to an end, like getting a high-paying job.
Absolutely. And that tension plays out in everything from how colleges are structured to what courses are offered.
Yeah.
It's a complicated issue with no easy answers.
Right.
And then there's the whole concept of massification to consider.
Massification. I'm not familiar with that term.
It refers to the idea that college should be accessible to everyone, not just a select few.
Okay.
It's led to a significant increase in college enrollment globally,
That's good.
which is great, but it's also presented some challenges.
Yeah. I can imagine more students means more resources needed, potentially stretching existing systems thin.
Right.
Are there other challenges related to massification?
One of the biggest challenges is the rising cost of college and the growing burden of student loan debt, particularly in the United States.
Right.
For many students, the financial pressure can be overwhelming, and it can actually hinder their ability to focus on their studies and fully engage in the learning process.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you're constantly worried about how you're going to pay for tuition or how you're going to pay back your loans,
Yeah.
it's hard to focus on things like critical thinking and exploring new ideas.
Exactly. There's also the question of whether a college degree is truly necessary for everyone to succeed in today's world. Some argue that we overemphasize the importance of college and that alternative pathways like vocational training or apprenticeships can be just as valuable.
That's a good point. It seems like a one-size-fits-all approach to education might not be the best solution.
Right, and interestingly, the chapter highlights research showing that while college does offer clear benefits, those benefits are most pronounced for students from lower socioeconomic backgrounds.
So for those students who already face more obstacles, earning a college degree can be a game changer?
Exactly. It's why it's crucial to address the systemic barriers that prevent many students from accessing higher education.
Right.
Whether it's financial constraints, lack of academic preparation, or even a lack of awareness about the opportunities available.
And the chapter actually shares a case study about a young man named Giovanni
Yes.
who chooses to work instead of going to college because he feels his responsibility to support his family.
Giovanni's story is a powerful reminder that for some, the immediate need to earn a living outweighs the long-term benefits of a degree, even if they understand those benefits. It's a complex decision influenced by so many factors, not just individual ambition or ability.
Yeah, I mean, it really highlights how socioeconomic factors can influence our educational paths.
Absolutely. And it reinforces the idea that college for all might not be the answer we need to create diverse pathways to success.
Right.
Recognizing that a traditional four-year degree isn't the only route to a fulfilling and well-paying career.
It seems like we need a more flexible and inclusive approach to education.
Right.
One that recognizes, individual needs and circumstances.
Yeah.
But shifting gears again, how is technology influencing all of this? I mean, we've seen this surge in online learning.
Right.
With things like MOOCs and flipped classrooms becoming more common.
Technology definitely has the potential to revolutionize education.
It does.
It can make learning more accessible, affordable, and engaging, but we need to be careful not to just replicate traditional teaching methods online.
Right, just slapping a lecture on a screen isn't going to cut it. We need to be more thoughtful about how we use technology to enhance the learning experience.
Exactly. The most effective online learning incorporates active learning strategies.
Okay.
Personalized feedback and opportunities for interaction and collaboration.
And I think it's important to remember that technology shouldn't replace human connection altogether.
Yeah.
Even in an increasingly digital world, we still crave those meaningful interactions and that sense of community that comes with learning alongside others.
I completely agree. And that brings us to another point. The chapter emphasizes the importance of diversity on college campuses.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not just talking about ethnic or racial diversity,
Right.
but diversity of thought, background, and experience.
So it's about exposing ourselves to different perspectives and challenging our own assumptions, right?
Exactly. There's research to support the idea that interacting with people from diverse backgrounds can actually enhance our cognitive development.
It makes sense when we step outside our own bubbles and encounter different ways of thinking and being. It forces us to expand our own perspectives and become more open-minded.
Precisely. And colleges have a unique opportunity to create those spaces where students from all walks of life can come together, learn from one another, and broaden their horizons.
It sounds like fostering diversity is beneficial not just for individual students, but for society as a whole.
Absolutely. A more diverse and educated population leads to greater innovation, creativity, and a deeper understanding of our shared humanity.
So we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from postformal thought and stereotype threat to the evolution of faith and the role of higher education. We've really explored how our thinking changes as we transition into adulthood. What are some of the key takeaways you think our listeners should keep in mind?
I think it's crucial to understand that this period of life is marked by significant cognitive growth.
Yeah.
We move beyond the black and white thinking of adolescence and start to embrace complexity, nuance, and multiple perspectives. This impacts everything from how we make decisions to how we build relationships and navigate the world around us.
It's like we're finally able to put all those cognitive pieces together and use our brains in a more sophisticated way.
Exactly. And remember, it's not just about passively letting our brains mature.
Right.
Our experiences, our education, and our willingness to challenge our own assumptions all play a vital role in shaping how we think.
So we have some agency in this process.
Yes.
We can actively cultivate those higher level thinking skills.
Absolutely. Seeking out diverse perspectives, engaging in thoughtful discussions, and being open to changing our minds when presented with new information. These are all ways to keep those cognitive muscles flexing.
It's like a mental workout. The more we challenge ourselves, the stronger our thinking becomes.
And as you continue your journey through adulthood, I encourage you to reflect on how your own experiences are shaping your cognitive development.
Okay.
What are you learning from your relationships, your work, even your challenges?
That's a good question.
How are you actively seeking out new perspectives and challenging your own assumptions?
Those are great questions to consider. It's so easy to get caught up in the day-to-day and forget to step back and reflect on how we're growing and evolving as thinkers. But I think that's such a crucial part of personal growth.
I agree. And one final thought I'd leave you with is this. As we become more skilled at critical thinking, analyzing information, and making sound judgments,
Yeah.
we have a responsibility to use those abilities for good, to advocate for justice, to challenge inequality, and to contribute to making the world a more thoughtful and compassionate place.
That's a powerful message to end on. Our brains are incredible tools, and we have a responsibility to use them wisely. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into cognitive development and emerging adulthood. We hope you found it insightful and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
It's been my pleasure. Remember, if geese keep learning, keep exploring, and keep those brains buzzing.